The young Coast Guard boarding officer watched the harbor patrol officer's vessel approach technique and went rigid. That specific interception angle, that tactical positioning, he'd only seen it performed by Coast Guard TACLET teams in counter-narcotics operations. He radioed his commander. The harbor patrol officer just executed a military interdiction maneuver. Welcome to Daily Story. Before we dive into this extraordinary tale of maritime law enforcement and hidden tactical expertise, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like these deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button to join our community. Charleston Harbor served as one of the Southeast's busiest ports, where the historic waterways of South Carolina met modern shipping commerce. The harbor's maze of channels, rivers, and inlets created perfect conditions for both legitimate maritime business and the illegal smuggling operations that had plagued the region for decades. The Charleston Harbor Patrol operated a small fleet of boats responsible for enforcing local maritime regulations, checking fishing licenses, monitoring speed limits in no-wake zones, ensuring boating safety, and coordinating with larger law enforcement agencies when serious incidents occurred. It was community-focused policing on the water, where officers knew most boat owners by name and enforcement was more about education than arrests. Officer Dana Martinez had worked harbor patrol for 8 years, operating a 28-foot Boston whaler equipped for routine maritime law enforcement. At 39, she had the calm competence and professional bearing that made her perfect for the job, checking registrations with friendly efficiency, helping boaters in distress, and maintaining the kind of visible presence that kept the harbor safe through deterrence rather than confrontation. Her colleagues knew her as the officer who could handle any vessel, who somehow always positioned her patrol boat with precision that made boarding smooth and professional, and who had an uncanny ability to spot problems before they escalated. She spoke with the clipped authority of someone accustomed to giving orders that would be followed immediately, used maritime terminology that seemed more military than civilian, and could read water conditions and vessel behavior with expertise that went beyond normal patrol experience. Local boaters respected Dana's professionalism. She was firm but fair, educated rather than citing when possible, and had built relationships with the fishing community that made her more effective than officers who relied purely on enforcement authority. When Dana Martinez pulled alongside your boat, you knew you'd be treated with respect, but you also knew she'd spot anything you were trying to hide. Dana lived in a small house on James Island, where she could watch harbor traffic from her back deck. Her neighbors knew her as the woman who left for work before dawn and often returned after sunset, always in her patrol uniform, always carrying the quiet confidence of someone completely comfortable on the water. What Dana's colleagues didn't know, what the Harbor Patrol Command couldn't have suspected from her employment history, was that Petty Officer First Class Dana Martinez, United States Coast Guard, had spent 14 years as a member of one of America's most elite maritime law enforcement units. She had served with Coast Guard Tactical Law Enforcement Team, TACLET South, conducting high-risk counter-narcotics operations in international waters, executing armed boardings of hostile vessels, and performing maritime interdictions that took her into some of the most dangerous situations in federal law enforcement. Her Coast Guard career included over 200 high-risk boardings, participation in operations that seized millions of dollars in illegal drugs, and tactical missions that had taken her into waters where drug cartels operated with military-grade weapons and showed no hesitation in using lethal force against law enforcement. TACLET training represented the pinnacle of Coast Guard tactical operations, advanced weapons training, close-quarters combat, maritime interdiction under fire, and the kind of split-second decision-making that determined whether operations ended with arrests or casualties. Her bookshelf held technical manuals on helicopter combat tactics, survival procedures, and aviation medicine that represented 15 years of mastering one of the most dangerous professions in military service. Maya had found peace in work that saved lives through precision flying rather than combat operations. Each day brought challenges that required the same aviation expertise she had developed during 15 years of military service, but her patients were injured civilians rather than wounded soldiers, and the threats she faced came from weather and terrain rather than enemy fire. Her house contained memorabilia from her Coast Guard career that she kept in a private room, photographs of vessels she had boarded, commendations for operations she couldn't discuss openly, and tactical equipment for missions in waters where American law enforcement presence was never officially acknowledged. Her bookshelf held manuals on maritime tactical operations, counter-narcotics procedures, and vessel interdiction techniques that represented 14 years of mastering one of federal law enforcement's most demanding specialties. Dana had found peace in work that used her maritime expertise to help her community. Each day brought familiar challenges, ensuring boater safety, educating new boat owners, and maintaining the visible presence that kept Charleston Harbor secure through prevention rather than tactical response. The morning of September 15th started with routine harbor operations, checking commercial fishing vessels as they departed for offshore waters, monitoring yacht club activity during a weekend regatta, and the usual collection of calls that defined summer in Charleston's busy waterways. At 11:47 a.m., Dana was conducting a safety inspection on a recreational fishing boat when her radio activated with an alert that would change everything. All harbor units, this is Coast Guard Station Charleston. Be advised we're tracking a suspicious vessel operating in the harbor approach channel. Vessel is avoiding standard shipping lanes and showing behavior consistent with smuggling operations. Coast Guard assets are responding, but ETA is 25 minutes. Dana immediately understood the significance of the alert. Drug smuggling operations had been increasing along the South Carolina coast, with cartels using fast boats to bring cocaine and fentanyl into small harbors where inspection resources were limited. A suspicious vessel in the approach channel meant potential smugglers testing harbor security. Station Charleston, this is Harbor Patrol 7. I can intercept a suspicious vessel. Request description and last known position. Harbor Patrol 7, vessel is a 35-foot center console, dark hull, twin outboard engines, 3 persons aboard. Last position was buoy marker 12, heading northwest toward the inner harbor. Be advised this is potentially high-risk encounter. Recommend you maintain observation only until Coast Guard assets arrive. Dana calculated the situation with expertise developed during 14 years of tactical maritime operations. 25 minutes was too long if the vessel was carrying drugs and intended to offload cargo in the harbor. Maintaining observation only meant the smugglers might complete their operation before the Coast Guard arrived. Station Charleston, Harbor Patrol 7 is responding to intercept. I'll attempt identification and assessment. Dana activated her patrol boat's blue lights and accelerated toward the reported position, using an approach route that would allow her to observe the suspicious vessel before they saw her. Her tactical training told her exactly how to position for interception while maintaining officer safety. As she rounded the marker buoy, Dana spotted the vessel, a high-performance center console with modifications that immediately identified it as a smuggling boat. The hull configuration, engine setup, and navigation patterns all matched profiles she had seen hundreds of times during TACLET operations. What made Dana's blood run cold was the recognition that this wasn't a small-time smuggling operation. The vessel's capabilities and crew behavior suggested cartel-level organization with the resources and training to resist law enforcement. She keyed her radio. Station Charleston, Harbor Patrol 7 has visual on a suspicious vessel. Confirming vessel matches Go Fast boat profile used in cartel operations. 3 persons aboard, the vessel is heavily modified for high-speed operations. Attempting interdiction. Harbor Patrol 7, negative on interdiction. This is a potential armed encounter. Maintain observation and await Coast Guard tactical response. Dana understood the order, but her tactical assessment told her that the smuggling boat would reach the inner harbor in less than 10 minutes, where they could offload cargo and disappear into the maze of waterways before the Coast Guard arrived. Once drugs entered Charleston's distribution network, interdiction became exponentially more difficult. She made a decision based on 14 years of tactical operations and 8 years of understanding Charleston Harbor better than anyone else on the water. Station Charleston, Harbor Patrol 7 is conducting a vessel stop for safety inspection. This is my jurisdiction and I'm utilizing Harbor Patrol authority. Dana positioned her patrol boat using interdiction techniques that TACLET teams employed during high-risk boardings, approach angle that limited the smuggling boat's escape routes, positioning that protected her from direct fire if weapons were present, and timing that gave her maximum tactical advantage. What Dana didn't know was that Petty Officer 2nd Class James Chun, a Coast Guard boarding officer conducting training exercises nearby, was monitoring the situation and had moved his patrol boat to observe Dana's interdiction attempt. Chun watched through binoculars as Dana executed her approach, and what he saw made him immediately key his radio to his team leader, Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez. Chief, you need to see this. The Harbor Patrol officer is using TACLET interdiction procedures. Rodriguez joined Chun at the rail and observed Dana's approach through tactical binoculars. That's not civilian Harbor Patrol technique. She's executing a high-risk boarding approach. Dana activated her loudspeaker. Vessel operator, this is Charleston Harbor Patrol. You are directed to reduce speed and prepare for safety inspection. Comply immediately. The smuggling boat's response confirmed Dana's worst assessment. Instead of complying, the vessel accelerated and made an aggressive turn designed to create separation and test whether Harbor Patrol would pursue into the inner harbor where navigation became more complex. Dana had seen this tactic countless times during TACLET operations. She responded with precision that drew immediate attention from Chan and Rodriguez, matching the smuggling boat's maneuvers while maintaining tactical positioning that prevented their escape toward open water. Station Charleston, Harbor Patrol 7. Suspicious vessel is attempting to evade. I'm in pursuit. Vessel behavior confirms hostile intent. Harbor Patrol 7, Break off pursuit. You're not equipped for high-risk interdiction. But Dana wasn't thinking about equipment, she was calculating tactics. The smuggling boat was faster, but Dana knew Charleston Harbor's channels, shoals and navigation hazards better than any outside operator. She could predict their escape routes and position to intercept using local knowledge that external smugglers didn't possess. For the next 8 minutes, Dana executed a pursuit that demonstrated maritime tactical expertise that civilian harbor patrol officers shouldn't possess. She forced the smuggling boat into progressively narrower channels where their speed advantage was negated, anticipated their navigation choices, and steadily closed the distance using boat handling skills that exceeded anything Chun and Rodriguez had seen outside of military operations. "Chief, that harbor patrol officer is running a tactical pursuit that belongs in our operations manual," Chun reported. "Where did she learn those techniques?" Rodriguez was already on his radio to the Coast Guard Station Charleston. "Station, this is Training Unit 7. We're observing Harbor Patrol 7's interdiction attempt. Recommend you run full background check on that officer. She's demonstrating capabilities consistent with TACLET training." The pursuit ended when Dana forced the smuggling boat into a dead-end creek where their only escape required passing her patrol boat. The smuggling vessel attempted one final aggressive maneuver, turning sharply and accelerating directly toward Dana's position in an attempt to intimidate her into breaking off. Dana held position with tactical precision, forcing the smuggling boat to either risk collision or surrender. At the last moment, the smuggling vessel cut power and raised hands in surrender, a universal acknowledgement that they had been outmaneuvered by a more skilled operator. Dana conducted the vessel boarding with textbook TACLET procedures, maintaining tactical positioning, securing the occupants with commands that left no room for interpretation, and searching the vessel with systematic efficiency that recovered 60 kilograms of cocaine and 3 firearms. By the time Coast Guard boarding teams arrived 15 minutes later, Dana had the situation completely controlled with all evidence secured and suspects restrained according to federal law enforcement protocols. Chief Rodriguez boarded Dana's patrol boat and found her completing documentation with professional calm that suggested this wasn't her first high-risk interdiction. "Officer Martinez, I need to understand what I just witnessed. That was TACLET-level vessel interdiction and boarding procedures. Where did you receive that training?" Dana secured her equipment before responding. "Chief, I served with TACLET South from 2004 to 2018. I conducted counter-narcotics operations throughout the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific." Rodriguez reviewed Dana's tactical approach mentally. "Ma'am, that wasn't just TACLET training. You executed pursuit and interdiction that I've only seen from operators with extensive operational experience." "Chief, I participated in over 200 high-risk boardings during my Coast Guard service. When you've done tactical operations that many times, the procedures become automatic." Chin approached from the smuggling vessel where evidence teams were processing the scene. "Ma'am, the suspects are claiming they chose this harbor because intelligence indicated local law enforcement had no tactical capability. They weren't expecting to encounter someone with military interdiction training." Rodriguez looked at Dana with new understanding. "Officer Martinez, would you be willing to share your background with Station Charleston? We're seeing increased cartel activity in these waters, and your expertise could help us develop better coordination between Coast Guard and local maritime law enforcement." Dana considered the request while watching Coast Guard teams secure the smuggling vessel. She had spent 8 years building a civilian law enforcement career that allowed her to serve her community without the constant danger of tactical operations. But today had demonstrated that her TACLET expertise could bridge Coast Guard and local law enforcement in ways that could prevent smuggling operations from exploiting gaps between federal and local jurisdiction. "Chief, I'll meet with your command staff to discuss coordination procedures. But I want to maintain my position with Charleston Harbor Patrol. This community depends on local maritime law enforcement, and I found purpose in serving civilians rather than conducting high-risk tactical operations." 3 days later, Dana found herself in a conference room at Coast Guard Station Charleston with federal agents, local law enforcement commanders, and Coast Guard tactical specialists. "Officer Martinez," Captain Patricia Hayes began, "your interdiction of the cartel smuggling operation has been recognized throughout Southeast law enforcement. Intelligence indicates that the suspects you arrested are part of a larger network that has successfully exploited coordination gaps between local and federal maritime law enforcement." Captain Hayes displayed intelligence briefings showing patterns of smuggling operations along the South Carolina coast. "We're proposing a liaison position that allows you to continue harbor patrol duties while providing tactical consultation and training for situations requiring coordination between local maritime law enforcement and Coast Guard tactical response." "What would this position entail?" Development of protocols allowing local officers to conduct initial response to suspicious maritime activity while maintaining their safety until Coast Guard tactical assets can arrive. But I want to maintain my position with Charleston Harbor Patrol. This community depends on local maritime law enforcement, and I found purpose in serving civilians rather than conducting high-risk tactical operations. 3 days later, Dana found herself in a conference room at Coast Guard Station Charleston with federal agents, local law enforcement commanders, and Coast Guard tactical specialists. Officer Martinez, Captain Patricia Hayes began, "Your interdiction of the cartel smuggling operation has been recognized throughout Southeast law enforcement. Your unique background makes you qualified to bridge both civilian community policing and federal tactical operations." Dana reviewed the intelligence showing how smugglers had been successfully operating in the gaps between local harbor patrols that lacked tactical training and Coast Guard resources that took too long to respond to fast-developing situations. "I'll accept a consulting role developing training and coordination procedures. But I want to continue regular harbor patrol operations. The community relationships I've built are what make local maritime law enforcement effective." 6 months later, Officer Dana Martinez was still conducting routine harbor patrol in Charleston Harbor, but now her patrol boat was equipped with secure communications linking directly to Coast Guard tactical operations centers, and her expertise had established training programs throughout the Southeast. She had developed protocols where local harbor patrol officers learned basic tactical assessment and positioning, while Coast Guard teams studied how to coordinate with civilian maritime law enforcement during operations that required both community knowledge and tactical capabilities. The harbor patrol officer who checked fishing licenses and enforced speed limits was also the tactical operations veteran who ensured that Charleston Harbor was protected from smuggling operations through coordination that combined local law enforcement presence with federal tactical response capabilities. Dana had learned that retiring from Coast Guard tactical operations didn't mean abandoning maritime law enforcement expertise. It meant finding ways to use that knowledge to protect communities while building the civilian career she wanted in the harbor she loved. Her work revealed that some of the most valuable law enforcement capabilities resided in veterans who had chosen civilian careers while maintaining tactical skills that could bridge jurisdictional gaps and create security that neither local nor federal systems could provide alone. The patrol officer who helped boaters and enforced local regulations was also the tactical operator who could stop cartel smuggling operations when they appeared in her harbor, creating maritime security through the combination of community relationships and tactical expertise. So now I ask you, have you ever known a police officer, security professional, or law enforcement officer whose capabilities seemed to exceed what their job required? Someone who handled dangerous situations with tactical precision that suggested much more demanding previous training? Share their story in the comments below. Tell us about the hidden tactical experts, the veterans who chose community service, the people who bring specialized skills to civilian law enforcement while remaining ready to deploy extraordinary capabilities when emergencies reveal threats that require expertise existing in very few officers. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that protection often comes from people working in unexpected roles while maintaining capabilities from careers that pushed operational limits, hit that subscribe button and join the Daily Story community. We're here to honor the maritime law enforcement professionals, the tactical operators, the people who dedicate their lives to protecting communities through work that appears routine but contains depths of tactical expertise that become visible only when circumstances demand capabilities defining the difference between successful interdiction and tragedy. Thank you for watching, and remember, the next time you see a harbor patrol officer, marine police, or maritime security professional demonstrating unusual competence, look a little closer. You might be watching someone who has spent years mastering tactical operations at the highest levels, now serving communities through work that honors both their operational past and their commitment to protecting the waters where people live, work, and recreate.